another one. Today we're talking about 20 Linux commands that you need to know if you want to become a system administrator working with Linux, working with the cloud. So without further ado, let's get into the first command. The first one is curl. Can you see that? The first command is curl. So what does curl do? Curl transfers the URLs to test application connectivity. Remember the last time you got the HTTP 500 error? Pretty annoying, right? You're trying to reach a website and you're getting this error. So what could be the problem? This means that your request to the page can't reach the database. And we can use curl to check if our application can get to other places other than the database. From here we can see if it can reach the name server or see why the database isn't resolving to the host name. And this leads us to our second command. Our second command works alongside curl, or it doesn't, but you can use it with curl. It's going to be a Python command, so you need a Python package installed for this. It's going to be python -m json.tool /JQ for JSON query. Now what does this mean? This is a big block of code. So essentially we were talking about curl right before time. So what does curl do? It gives you some information based on why applications can't reach the server, why the database isn't working. It just gives you a lot of information, and sometimes it gives you a lot of information. It's hard to read, it's hard to decipher. So that's when you would, you do the curl command and then pipe it into this, something like this, where here Python is essentially translating that output into a JSON format. And as you know, JSON is a lot easier to read as a human being. And that's why you would need to know something like this to debug things more efficiently. Now it leads us to Linux command number 3. Linux command number 3 is ls. Obviously, this is list. Lists all the files, the contents in your directory that you're currently in. Next one is head. You would use this to list the beginning parts of a file, just to see the intro of it. The next one is tail. Tail does the opposite of head. It lists the end, the last parts of the file, instead of the first parts of the file. Our sixth command that you need to know as a Linux administrator or a cloud admin is cat. This is short for concatenate. You can use this command to check contents of the file, such as the app version. Command number 7, grep. Grep searches for file patterns. It's essentially a search tool. You can use grep to look through log files to look for error messages. And an example of how we would use this is when we're troubleshooting for errors, we can look through log files. An example of this is when we're troubleshooting errors. We need to know how to troubleshoot what we're looking for. So grep, we can use this to filter through some log files to look for the errors that we're looking for. We can use a command like grep error. Error is the thing we're looking for. And the location of it is going to be var log messages. Can you read that? Yeah, okay. So var log messages, that's like the location of some of the variables, the messages, the log files that are coming in when there's servers using applications, client computers are working with the server, and here we can use grep to pull those messages, to filter them so that we can see what we want to see when it comes to troubleshooting. Next command is ps. PS shows the process ID and the statuses of running processes. Now there's env that stands for environment variable. If an application isn't starting, you can use this command to check if there are any wrong environment variables that are preventing the application from starting. And these variables can be versions, data path, the location of the files, or even the name of the database. The 10th command that you need to know as a system administrator is top. is it's like the task manager for Windows. It shows you all the running processes. It's a monitoring tool. Sometimes, we'll get a memory error saying that we're out of memory. So we can go in the top and check, is it really out of memory or is this program just bugging out? The next command, this is for you networking boys. It's called netstat. Netstat shows network information on that Linux. So, it's like a routing table. It shows us the network ports in use and their incoming connections. However, as you know, some of you networking guys, when you take a router like a 2911 Cisco, you already have routing tables on the iOS by default. Whereas Netstat, it doesn't come default with Linux. Instead, you have to install it as a package, or since we are a DevOps culture, a culture that holds value in productivity instead of busy work, we can use automation instead. When we're provisioning virtual machines in Azure Cloud or Amazon or Google Cloud, we can use a deployment script when spinning up these virtual machines so that they can automatically be installed while the VMs are spinning up, and that saves us time, energy, and headaches. Another network command is IP. IP just shows the interface that you're using. Are you using an Ethernet, you're using a wireless, it shows what the IP address information is, your subnet mask, your IP, IPv4, IPv6, whatever you're using. The next command is ISOF. ISOF, it lists the open files associated with an application, and more importantly, you can check for listening ports. So what does that mean? If you want to check if port 80 is in use, you can use ISOF to check which process IDs are using that. The next command you need to know is df. df displays free disk space. You can use this when a program is giving you an error like out of disk usage, and you can just double check to see what you're looking for. And this gives us the next command, which correlates with that, is du. du retrieves detailed information about which files use the disk space in a directory. You can use this to see which files are using the most space. That way you can see, here's a huge application that we never used, but it's taking up all this space. So you can use that tool to optimize your operating system. The next command is id. With this command, you can check the users running the applications. And this command can only be properly used if you're a super user, which is when you got the big pound like that, for those of you that don't know. The next command is chmod. And it also correlates with commands like chown. There you go, 2 commands in one. So as a super user, you can change permissions and execution rights on files to make sure that some files are read-only, some are read and write, some are executable read and write. So this is an important one to know, that you can only be using this if you're a super user. The 18th command that you need to know as a Linux administrator is dig. Dig is a DNS lookup utility, and you can be using this with the command nslookup. You can use this for nameserver lookups, seeing if DNS is resolving, seeing, if DNS isn't resolving, you would use something like this to look at the output that it gives you so that you can know what's going on in your Linux operating system. The 19th command is firewall cmd. Now with this command, you have to use sudo user. You can close ports, open ports. If you wanted to enable SSH on a server, then we would have to use this command to open up port 22. Or if we're running Linux as our DNS server, we would have to open up port 53 to allow the DNS connections to be going back and forth between the client computers and the server. And the last command that you need to know is history. History shows us all the commands that have been run on this Linux operating system since the beginning of our session. We're IT people out here. We have a lot of stuff to remember, and sometimes we're forgetting commands. Sometimes we forgot what we did. You don't have to be a freaking genius to remember everything that you know. Maybe you typed something in like 3 hours ago and you forgot what it was, and you're like looking through what it was, but you can just use history to remind yourself what you were typing in. So those are my 20 commands that you need to know as a Linux administrator. It will help you with your cloud jobs, it will help you with your networking, it'll help you with everything if you want to get into IT. Thank you for watching. I hope you found something valuable in what I had to say, and I'd like to wish you all a good day.